Chair, thanks, gentlelady. The chair now recognizes Representative Onder from the state of Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Richardson, for being here with us today. Missouri experienced severe storms and flash flooding earlier this year on May 23rd, and we didn't receive a disaster declaration until last night. My constituents were frustrated by how long it takes to get temporary housing and debris removal assistance support from FEMA. Why does it take so long to make these determinations, and what's being done to cut the time to get help in these situations?
So when the determinations come in, we review them. We work with the regions primarily. As far as specifics of each one of the declarations, I would like to get back to you, and I'll go back home, I'll look into it, I'll figure it out, and I'll come back to you and give you any specific details, because I think you're looking for specific information on a certain declaration, correct?
Yeah, or what is the process of issuing these declarations?
The declarations come in, there's a set of criteria, and then we make a recommendation on that criteria. Once again, it's eligibility based. So there's criteria, and we have to take a look at the criteria and make sure. For example, from the first second I found out about the horrific events in Texas, I got on the phone and I was speaking to the emergency manager there, and we were talking about how the declaration was going to come in, how it was going to be crafted. So there's some pre-work that's done right in the middle of the disaster normally, and then there's some administrative work that needs to be done at the regional level, and then it comes to FEMA. So, but it's normally worked out very early if they meet the criteria or not, because we all kind of have a pretty good idea what it is, and then we got to get it down on paper. And that's what I spent a lot of time on the 4th of July, well, really the 4th and the 5th with NIM Kid, because theirs came in, I believe it was just after midnight on Sunday, so it came in very quickly from Texas. And then the criteria, we took it and we turned that around within just a couple hours.
Very good. And you emphasize the need to cut red tape and remove cumbersome processes to speed up disaster recovery. Can you walk us through specific internal FEMA policies or procedures that you have streamlined to speed up delivery of assistance?
Yeah, so one of the things that I recognized immediately, and part of it was from being the Assistant Secretary at CWMD prior, part of it was doing mission analysis. What I discovered is there were 3 or 4 contract shops around FEMA. So we consolidated that, okay? Because that makes it a lot faster. If you consolidate, you've got the same people, you're keeping track. And then the other thing we do is we make sure that we've got a team that tees those contracts up for me to sign. And we have certain ones that have to come to me. So what we've done is we've reduced the number of hands, so to speak, that touch those. We also consolidated so we know where they all are all exactly. So it's actually working pretty good now, and that's what we've done.
And you've said that FEMA needs to return primacy to the states. For states like Missouri, what would that look like? What kind of shift in operational authority and flexibility to state and local managers might we see?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be, it probably has to do more with training and coordination. So the coordination is the key piece, how the coordination is done. One of the challenges that FEMA has is when the region comes into the state, even though we run TTXs all the time, I think I was involved in at least 7 or 8 TTXs all the way from Guam to the Virgin Islands. And one of the things I talked to the folks in the after action about was what gaps in capability they had. So if the states can become, adept at identifying their gaps, and if they can communicate that to the region, that is part of it. So they know what their shortfalls are. They've pre-identified them so that we can pre-position assets. That's the key. And once again, states like Texas are kind of a model, and they did that very well, as demonstrated in the events of the flood.
Very good. Thank you. I yield back.